Hi. This last few years have not been very good for the passenger car manufacturers. It's not to say that this market is, is bad forever. It's possibly a case of some of the things not working very well for some time, and as everybody knows, there has been slow and negative growth in the recent past. And one of the things that having said that, there have been some extremely nice successes that we have seen in the marketplace with specific products, even in a very difficult year. Given all of this, we thought it was our responsibility to go out into the market and find out what we can understand from the customers as they're trying to buy cars, and what can we take to our clients as they position their products and as they create messaging around their products to their target buyers. Consequently, we went out and spoke with little over 1,800 people in India, many of them car owners, and we asked them as to how they went about deciding as to why they required to buy a car, what did they do as a process of buying the car, and what they thought of the car that they bought. And we have produced this report that we are calling Driving Through the Consumer's Mind, Considerations for Car Purchase, that we have put out in the public. There are three aspects that we covered in this report. The first aspect was, why do you want to buy a car? We asked the respondent the question, why do you want to buy a car? And the second aspect that we wanted to cover was, now that you've decided to buy a car, how do you go about buying the car? And the third aspect was, having bought the car, how happy or otherwise are you with the car? And does it have any implication on the way in which you will behave when you want to buy your replacement car eventually? If you take the first dimension, that is what drives people to buying a car, conventionally we all believe that buying a car is a very emotional process, and it's all about making a statement. I am successful and therefore I am buying a car, and this is to tell the world that I've arrived. But very interestingly, that doesn't seem to be the case. I think there are very, very objective, rational reasons as to why customers want to buy a car. And we asked them if making a statement is an important reason, and that figured as the number 3 or number 4, depending on who you were speaking with, as a reason to buy a car. And that reason was important for Gen X males who are in their late 40s on the outside and maybe middle 30s at the lower end. But the Gen Y, who are the younger people who are buying the car, seem to be a little more objective as to why they want to buy the car. So it's all about the family. It's unlike possibly the Western world, where you buy a mobility solution for yourselves. Here it's all about, I buy my car for my family. And if you are a repeat buyer, you want to buy a car because you want a better product, you want a more sophisticated product, you want to have more space and things like that. Very interestingly, people did not think of wanting to buy a car because they wanted to own a brand. Brand did not enter the minds of the customer at this stage. I mean, they just wanted to buy a car for a very rational purpose. And once they made that decision, we asked them, what are the next things that you think of? And overwhelmingly, customers said, I would look at choice of brands based on how I can get my car serviced in my neighborhood. So again, it's no longer important or adequate to just have a great brand and a great looking product, but the customer evaluates you, if you're a manufacturer, based on how the last mile connectivity has been set up by you. And then comes issues like resale value and the reliability of the car. We asked them how important is fuel efficiency. Again, I think it's today considered as table stake. It's no longer something that can appeal to the customer. They expect you to provide that as a given, and that's possibly a lesson for manufacturers when they message their customers. Having done that, we had an understanding of why you want to buy a car. Having made the decision, what are the big, shall we say, filters that you put your choice of brands through? We try to understand a little in a little more detail as to how they actually go through the process of buying the car, and we found that they consider anywhere between three and most car buyers consider anything between 3 and 5 brands while making the final selection, and obviously it goes up in some cases. For example, the buyers of SUVs and vans, minivans, consider more number of brands before they make the final choice. Mind you, if you look at the number of brands that are available in SUVs and minivans, they are not as many. And therefore the man or a woman who's buying a SUV or a minivan or a van actually looks at every product that possibly is within the price point at which he or she wants to buy the vehicle before making this choice. I mean, one would possibly say they are a little more passionate about what they're doing, but it's true that the buyers of SUVs and MUVs tend to look around a great deal more before they make the choice. And it so happens that the Gen Y possibly spends lesser time because they probably tend to look at lesser number of brands when they make the purchasing decision. That was quite interesting for us as we went through the process, and we have sliced and diced this data by gender, urban, rural, and all of that. That's something that is available in the report that we have put out in the public domain. Once that is done, one interesting trend that we are able to see in the last couple of years, it's a very small number at the present moment, but maybe it's a growing trend, is the fact that there are about 5% of the customers or less who are saying, I consider only one brand. It could be a function of the fact that there is a very aggressive repurchase or a loyalty program that is in the market at the present moment. Maybe that's due to that, but it is a fact that there is a small sliver of the population that wants to look at a single brand and make the brand choice. When they do this. And the third dimension, like I said, that we covered in this report was having bought the car, how happy or otherwise you are. And before we went to that, we actually asked them to write the names of brands that they considered when they last made the car purchase. While you will remember I spoke about how most people look at 3 to 5 brands, a very large majority of them actually spoke about far more number of brands that they actually considered. Therefore, the conclusion that we are able to come to is there seems to be a long list and there seems to be a short list. The short list is 3 to 5, which is what they are very conscious of, but it doesn't mean they look at these 3 to 5 brands at the cost of the other brand. They have looked at everything before they come to this 3 to 5 brands. And then we ask them, how happy or otherwise are you with your present brand, present product, on several factors like mileage, space, safety, reliability, and all of that. A very large portion of the customers seem to be quite happy with what they have. Call it post-purchase dissonance reduction, call it genuine happiness, call it a lack of a benchmark in the case of first-time buyers with which they would compare what they had. Whatever be the case, there is a fairly high level of satisfaction that we are able to find from customers. What does that mean? In an ideal world, that satisfaction should automatically result in repurchase of the product when they're back again in the market, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I'm happy, all right, but when it comes to buying the next car, I'll do this whole process all over again. Therefore, it is going to be a tough game for the manufacturers, because you have tried your best to keep your customers happy, and this time for them to buy one more car, and they would consider you certainly, but they would consider in equal measure several of your competitors as well. So this is a challenge that the manufacturers will have to live with for some time to come. Or is there a better way of dealing with your customers, ensuring that they stay connected with you, and their satisfaction that they seem to have in their minds? How can you make that convert into a repurchase of your own brand? So this is broadly what we have done, I think, as a part of this report. And the interesting lessons that we are able to take to our clients are the following. One, the customer is a very rational animal, therefore it may be worthwhile for you to look at how you want to communicate with the customer. The second thing is, most of the brands that are in the play seem to have the opportunity to get into the consideration set of the customer. It's not as if customers are focused on 1, 2 or 3 or 4 brands. They tend to look at everybody, and if you are able to offer the value proposition, and this is, as you can understand from what I've been saying, it's a value hunting customer. If you're able to represent the value proposition that is interesting, you do have a great opportunity to get selected by the customer. The third thing is the customer is happy with your product in most cases, but that doesn't necessarily convert into the second purchase from you. Therefore, is there a case for you to be looking at what you want to do with the customer? And more importantly, what we are finding out as a part of this study is the time for which the customer is going to hold on to the car is likely to be coming down, because they expect the personal car to increase its share of his or her mobility requirements. And therefore, you have slightly lesser time, maybe over 6 or 7 months, to get your current customer on your side, so that he or she will stay with you as a future customer as well.